Welcome to Draft Central's 2020 coverage of the AFL Draft. What a top 10 that was. Some surprises, and we'll get to that with our team. We have Ed Pascoe, Michael Alvaro, and Peter Williams to discuss all of the highlights of the top 10.
Thanks, Sean. G'day, guys. Really keen to get stuck into these top 10 picks. There's a few surprises, some bolters, sliders, and all sorts.
Yeah, it's been certainly an interesting time. I think generally the 10 that we thought in the sort of Phantom Draft, 9 of them went. So fairly, from early on, we knew that it was going to be a bit of a surprise, and no one really knew which way pick 2 was going to go. And then that went obviously to Tilthorpe, and then pick 3, which was the surprise, like Will Phillips, which obviously then it meant that no Phantom Draft had the first 3, which is, I don't think I've ever heard of that before. So that's remarkable, really.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I don't think anyone would have been able to pick that top 10, but it was always going to be like that in a draft like this when you have so many players who have missed the year and you're going on a lot of projections. So it's pretty tough to get it right, but it's been pretty unpredictable so far, and that's what we want.
A mixed bag of players selected in the top 10. Just to recap, Jamara Ugle-Hagan found his way to the Western Bulldogs at pick number 1 after a bid from the Adelaide Crows. The Crows at pick 2 selected Riley Thilthorpe, who was a local boy and a selected pick at pick 2. Number 3 was Will Phillips from the Oakley Chargers, ending up at North Melbourne, a surprise to many. Pick number 4 was Logan McDonald, ending up at the Sydney Swans. Pick 5, Sydney Swans Academy prospect Braden Campbell finding his home at the Sydney Swans after a bid from Hawthorn. Pick 6, Denver Granger Barras, a key defender from WA finding his way to Hawthorn. Pick number 8, Elijah Hollands going to the Gold Coast Suns. Pick number 8, Nicholas Cox finding his way to Essendon. Pick 9, Archie Perkins to the Bombers. And pick 10, Zach Reid. To you guys, were there any surprises? Who were the players that ended up at clubs that maybe you didn't think would end up at that particular club and that pick?
Yeah, I mean, surprises galore. You look at sort of the top end, Jamara, Ugle-Hagan and Thilthorpe we expected to be amongst the picks there, but then Will Phillips at number 3, guys, probably the first wild card of the bunch, and it was so high up, and, the dominoes fell after that. So I guess what'd you make of it?
Yeah, I felt like the top 10 itself wasn't that surprising. It was just the order that it fell. So I think that most people probably nailed those players that were going to be in there. So I think that overall it was predictable in that sense, but very, very unpredictable in the order, which is what you want. Roughly who the top players are. And we knew that, we were sort of saying that Hawthorn was going to bid on Campbell, and we knew that Adelaide was likely to bid on Ugle-Hagan from a couple of days ago. So it's quite interesting that that's sort of panned out that way. And then obviously Nick Cox was the other one to Essendon, which might have been probably the surprise of the top 10. Not a shock, but a little bit of a surprise that happened. And going, 2 talls. So I guess, Ed, what do you sort of make of Essendon picking up 2 talls?
Yeah, so they definitely want to shore up that future spine as well, with the likes of Hurley and Hooker going and Danaher that's recently left. They'll be looking at maybe one or both of them playing in other positions as well, even though they both suited to key defence. I mean, they have both played forward at times as well, so they could still play that role. And not to forget, they have their NGA players in Cody Brand and Josh Eyre, who are both very versatile players as well.
With so many talls going in the top 10 of the draft, do you think the clubs selected their players based on needs or who the best players available were at their pick?
Yeah, I definitely think that it was, I'd say for Essendon, for example, it was a needs basis, getting a couple of talls and getting that in, as well as that speed, obviously we knew with Perkins. So, I definitely think that was a really important one. And from, the perspective at the top, it was really a mix, I think, of talls and sort of smalls. And I think definitely with North taking Phillips, that was a bit of a surprise because most thought it was either going to be the talls or Holland. So, but that's what we love about it. It's so interesting and it's so unpredictable.
Yeah, I mean, Phillips, does he sort of... is he a similar type to some of North Melbourne's midfielders already, I think would be the question as well. And then you look at sort of the way that they dropped afterwards. McDonald didn't take long to get picked up, and Sydney probably need that key forward. And then from there on out, Granger Barras to Hawthorn, maybe a little bit of a surprise, but, it's hard to pass him up at pick 6. So, the way that they fell, Elijah Hollins is really hard to pass up at pick 7 as well. So, I mean, it was. We thought it would be a little predictable with the players in the Rangers, but I mean, they fell just so differently.
We had a question come in regarding the Collingwood trade and what that means. So what happened was Collingwood gained pick 41 and pick 42 in this year's draft, and Hawthorn gained Collingwood's second round pick for next year, pick 62 and pick 69. Even though this doesn't concern the top end of picks, why did Collingwood do this trade with Hawthorn?
Yeah, well, it looks pretty good news if you're a Collingwood fan, or at least what Collingwood suggests, because the way that I read that is it looks like Collingwood expect the bid for McInnes to come post their second pick, because if it did, they would go into deficit, and by getting those couple of picks in, it means it's going to come after that selection. If it came before, they'd only lose those picks, and now they've traded up for no reason. So I would say they've basically worked out that the McInnes bid isn't going to come in till after that second pick. Just my thoughts. That's basically what I think it is.
And with Hawthorn as well, they had those 3 picks in the 40s, so you'd expect maybe one or maybe both as a bid for Downey. So they probably think, we've got plenty of points to match, so we can afford to bolster up our picks in the next draft.
We've just seen Adelaide select with pick 11 Luke Pedler, so one of the biggest bolters in this year's draft. Looking ahead to the next lot of picks, who missed out on the top 10 that maybe could have squeezed in there, and who do you see coming through in the next couple of picks?
Yeah, well, I mean, Pete mentioned before that 9 of our top 10 sort of went ahead. The only one who missed was Tanner Bruhn. So we expect him to sort of go in that teens range. I don't think he'd last too long on the board. Yeah. So Bruhn, Ollie Henry would have been close to Essendon's picks, and Reef McInnes probably as well as another one who would have been in contention. And Luke Pedler, a pretty cool pick from Adelaide there, a real bolter at pick 11 for sure.
Thanks, Ed, thanks, Michael, and thanks, Pete, for your expert analysis. We'll be back after the next lot of picks to discuss the next lot of young talent coming to your club.